Thank you, Mariana, for the introduction. Thank you, Dirk, for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Robert, and with my organization, we moved down to the project level and do very concrete measures. We are a little organization with a project called Weichenstellwerk, and we cooperate with the municipality in Graz and with the police, especially. And yeah, I just wanted to say when I got a call that we were picked as good practice during this project, I was a bit surprised and honored, although we knew that we do some kind of meaningful work, but to get the recognition like that is also very nice. Thank you for that. And for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So, what do we do? We do language training. We also do so-called open courses. For example, on intercultural communication, we do also gaming nights. We do courses on Arabic calligraphy. We also do leisure activities, and we do workshops on different topics. And we have a cooperation, as I mentioned before, with the police in Graz. We also have a little sewing studio in our project and a music school. And all these services are cost-free. And the most important thing probably is that we have more than 30 volunteers who work in our project. And these are the people who talk with the migrants, who talk with the refugees, offering help and advice. What we want basically is we want to facilitate respectful interactions between refugees and the host society. So that's basically the same approach as Els described a half an hour ago. It's a process which needs two parties. And we want to bring people together, and we do not want to separate them. And we want to talk with people, and we don't want to talk only about people like we do here, basically. We also want to provide low threshold accessible education and occupation services for refugees, and orientation for the daily life in Austria. For example, we accompany them when they have problems with bureaucracy. As Emiliana mentioned in the introduction, we also promote civic engagement with our more than 30 volunteers who do the language training. And we want to reach out into not only, but also into host society too, and fight racism and xenophobia. So how did it begin? In this refugee movement during 2014 and 2015, there was a huge presence of asylum seekers in a public park in Graz, and a lot of people called the police and because they felt unsafe. And at the same time, people called the newspapers, and there were a lot of articles which promoted a negative attitude towards asylum seekers too, and a lot of headlines were lack of safety in this park, lack of safety there, lack of safety there. So the municipality approached the community policing department of the police, and there is a very active policeman, a former member of parliament, which is my boss. And he actually started the process and launched a process of public participation. This process involved these stakeholders, as you see, the police, the municipal authority, the asylum seekers, a local Afghan association, active citizens in the neighborhood, some of them who called the police and complained about the issue. Then next to the park there is a church, so the pastor of the church was involved too, and also students which were to become the future German teachers. So my organization conducted a survey and put together some data, and basically the result of the survey was that it's not a lack of safety. The threat is not real because very few criminal offenses were actually registered, and the lack of safety is actually an issue of perception, and this perception was amplified by the newspapers. Most of the people said, and this was the conclusion of the process, was that it's not a safety issue, it's a social issue. And the first measure that was undertaken was to implement German classes, cost-free German classes in the basement of the church, because that was the first room available. And the question was, we approached mostly young men were hanging out in the park, mostly from Afghanistan, some from Syria, and we just asked them, what do you need? And most of the time the first answer was, we need German classes. So we started to do that. If you have a look, wow. If you have a look at this picture, on the left-hand side is the policeman, who is a colleague of my boss and who played a major role in this process. Next to him is his daughter, who is a student of German as a foreign language. So she organized the first German classes and gathered some students from university to provide that. Next to her, that's Ferredo. He's still working with us, is my dear colleague, and he's in Austria for 10 years now. He's from Afghanistan, and on the right-hand side, it's the pastor of the church. This is from a newspaper article, a positive newspaper article after the process. So because we also talked, during the process, we also talked with the newspapers, with the editor-in-chiefs, and we asked them not to publish any articles on that issue anymore. And we had some arguments because we're saying you're only making things worse. So they agreed, and within 2 years there were no bad public responses anymore. So, like kind of milestones. 2015, we started with the German courses, then with leisure activities like doing hikes in the mountains, playing football, going to the museum, and so on. And most of this was done by volunteers, and mostly students from social sciences. Then in 2017 was a major milestone for our project, because it moved from the church basement, which was cold and packed, as you can imagine, to new premises. And what we did last year was we tried to do a transformation from a grassroots initiative to well-managed projects. We also applied for public funding, and we got it. So, and since then it's growing and growing. And the funding is done by the municipality of Graz and the holding Graz. The holding Graz is the provider of public transport in Graz. Our premises are located in rooms of the holding Graz, and we don't pay any rent. And this is only possible because We have a good lobby with our boss, and he has the connections and he does a lot of convincing. That's why this was possible. So in order to give you a sense of size of our little project, 30 volunteers, we also employ 2 native speakers who are there a couple of hours per week with hours, and they are like our connection to the communities. They not only provide translation for us, they also help us to understand each other. Because both of them live in Austria a couple of years and they know both societies, and these multiplicators are very, very important during this process. We also have 2 music teachers, and since last year I also have 6 interns from university. They do teacher training. That's why we can provide the language classes, because we don't pay our teachers. Anyway, but these volunteers, they also benefit from the process. First, they gain experience. They gain experience in working in a field or with a target group they're normally not familiar with during the teacher training. And if the development of demography is like that, the next years these teachers will be the ones who know how to deal with people from Afghanistan. They know how to deal with people from Syria, because they worked with them a couple of years. The teacher training, the state teacher training is a bit slow in their concepts, of course, as you can imagine, and they gain valuable, our teachers gain valuable experience. And it is possible to do the mandatory internship for teacher training in our project. So I managed to do the cooperation with the university last year, and that's also very important for us. So again, to get an idea of size, we do language courses from alphabetization to the more advanced levels. At the moment, we have a total of 180 participants in the German classes, not the leisure activities. Then we have maybe more than 200 people every week in our premises. The age is between 20 and 65. I think we even have 70 years old, a year old, and the percentage of female participants is 40%. Okay. Apart from the language classes, we do open courses. So you don't have to register for the open courses, you just come and go as you like. These courses basically have the goal to bring people together, to make people talk to each other, provide a safe room with coffee, and where we can approach each other as human beings and not as a member of host society, as a migrant, and whatever. Then we also help the younger ones in school with maths and English, and since last year one of our students said he wanted to give Arabic classes. So now we in our project, social workers from Graz and myself, Aydek Barletet, we learn some Arabic, because it's important to make the experience what it means to learn different writing, different and everything, completely different language. Okay. Now, for you, maybe the most interesting part, what the hell are we cooperating with the police? as I mentioned before, the police was the policemen were very active in setting up the project, and so still the cooperation is ongoing, and the police every 2 or 3 months they do workshops, and these are the topics, for example, how to deal with authorities on human rights, mostly on equal treatment. What's the police job? What is the police allowed to do? When can I call the police? What's the role of the police in a democratic state? In 2019, the last workshop was on youth protection law, because a new youth protection law in Austria was signed, and our customers got confused about that. What does it mean? And we also did one on laws on drug abuse, and the next one will be on internet and fraud in internet. And this is, the policeman is a young, very, very communicative guy, very friendly, and that's our main partner. What are the objectives again? First, information. Second, reducing mutual preconceptions, because not everyone of our customers, of course, is aware what's the role in a democratic state, what's the role of the police in a democratic state. And the last one is maybe the one of the most important, is it's a mutual build-up of trust. Very often it happens that after these workshops, a refugee approaches us in private and says, I have this problem, is this a matter of, can I call the police when I have a problem like this? And we sit together in a room privately and we talk about that with the policeman, and then we decide, is it a police matter or is it a matter for social workers? Okay. Last point I wanted to mention is our music school, because this is a thing which reaches out very much into host society. So for 2 years now we offer cost-free music lessons in singing, guitar, piano, drums and bass. And during the work in the music school, a band was formed, a band of 4 young Afghani guys and 2 guys from Austria, and we call them the Musikranten, which is a play on words. Yeah, maybe you get it, the music rants. And this, the band is getting more and more successful. We hoped that it would be like this, but we didn't really expect that, because there are more than 50 gigs scheduled in 2019 on local level, and even like in Vienna and other federal districts. And they play Austrian international pop music, some German-speaking pop music, and also popular songs from Iran and Afghanistan. And it's very interesting to see the reaction of people if a band like this plays in a local pub, of course, especially when they play Austrian songs and then Afghan songs. Why are we promoting a project like this or pushing them forward to do more? To do more gigs is because we want to fight xenophobia, and if you see that band, you immediately get a positive image of foreigners, a positive image of black-haired people, and not the picture which is drawn in media. Yeah, I would have prepared a small video, but first we ran out of time, and second there is no sound. And there's no point doing a music video with sound. So thanks for your attention.